This video is for theme modeling and simulation, unit manipulation. And in this video I'm going to show you how to open up a saved PXD file into Pixlr, and then I'm going to show you how to apply effects to the images to make them look more realistic. So, in the last video we managed to save our PXD file onto our desktop. You probably saved yours into your My Documents. What I'm going to do now is I've accessed the pixlr.com website. I'm going to open up the photo editor, and we're back to these four options. And obviously what I want to do is I don't want to create a new image or open up one from a URL. I actually want to open up an image from my computer. So if I click on this button, I'm presented with this screen where I can locate my saved image. So hopefully you did save yours to your documents. However, I saved mine on my desktop and I can see that it's here. So I'm looking for that .pxd file. Once I've found that, I click on the open button. And straight away what it does there is it opens up my image from the last session, and you can see that I still have my layers intact. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply quite a few different effects to this image to make it look more realistic. First of all, what I need to do though is if I'm going to apply effects to this background and the spaceship, I need to take this lock off of the background. So if you can remember, what I need to do to take that lock off is to simply double click the lock, and now I can make changes to the background as well as the spaceship as well. Something that I like to do is I actually like to label these layers, and what I mean by that is if I have a lot of layers here that I'm working with, calling them layer 0 and layer 1 is not really very helpful. So if you just double click on the name of the layer, we can actually type in what it is that we want to call that layer. So I'm just going to do that with both, like that, so things don't get complicated and I know what's on which layer. Now I've done that, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to first of all resize this spaceship, because I don't actually want it to be this big, otherwise that looks too fake. Okay, so I'm just going to use my move tool for a minute, and I'm going to go to make sure that I'm on the spaceship layer, okay, because that's what I want to work on. So make sure that one's selected in blue. I'm going to go to edit, and I'm going to go to free transform. You can see that there's a shortcut that I can use. Control and T on my keyboard will allow me to do this. It will put this box around the shape that is on that layer, and the box is surrounded by these little blue boxes in the corner and at the bottom and top. And what I can do with these are, if you can see the arrow changing into these different arrows. So I've got an arrow that looks like a circular motion, and what that does is it allows me to rotate the image. You can see that the arrow can change into this double arrow as I get close to these boxes, and that will allow me to make the image bigger or smaller. Notice that I can actually distort this image and make it look quite strange. Now you might want to do that with this, but I don't like distorting any images. So if you're using this arrow to resize, just keep hold of the shift key on your keyboard, and it should actually keep it in proportion. So again, you can see that I can no longer take it out of proportion. So what I'm going to do is keep hold of my shift button, resize it so that it's about that big. I might rotate it a little bit, like that. And then once I'm happy with that, I have to hit the return key on my keyboard, or the enter key. And that's made the changes. Now again, you can decide whether you think that's maybe too big still, because if you remember, I'm actually only viewing it at 34% at the minute. So if I go to 100%, the actual spaceship is much larger. It's actually that big. Okay, so you need to decide whether the spaceship is small enough or big enough, but make sure you're looking at it at 100%. I am going to go back to 33% so I can see the whole of the screen like that. Another way to actually zoom in and zoom out is to use this navigator palette here, and what I can do here is I can just scroll this along like that and zoom in and zoom out as well. Okay, so that's quite useful. If I zoom in, I can get this box, move it up and see a particular part of the screen, but again I'm just going to zoom out so that I can see it all. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to make a mistake on purpose, and there's a reason for it. What I'm going to do is, let's imagine that all I really want to do is have these two layers, okay, the spaceship and the background. But let's imagine that I create a new layer, and on this new layer I accidentally do a squiggle. Okay, and that was an accident. Now I could delete this layer, yeah, I could do that. But let's say, for example, I did that squiggle on the spaceship layer, like that, and that is an accident. That's a big accident, because if I wanted to just move this black line, then that's going to be very difficult, because it's like being back in paint. I've drawn those on the same layer. Okay, so again, I could use my rubber tool, which is here, and I could try and rub these lines out, but I might accidentally rub the spaceship out like that. Now, I'm sure you're aware that in most programs we can go to edit at the top and we can go to undo, which is really useful. But something that's even better than that with this pixel art is this history palette down here. What this history palette does is it records every big major action that I've made in this publication, and I can just click my way back through them like that. So you can even see, look, this open image here is what it looked like when I actually opened the document at the start. The next thing I did is transform this UFO, so if I can go through them, and then I made it look like this. After that, I created a new layer. I used the brush tool on that layer. I then deleted that layer, used the brush tool again on this layer, and then erased part of that. So I can work my way through the history and get it back to where I actually want it. So you can see that I've actually taken off these last two things that I've done. And now what I can do is I can start working on it again, and these two will disappear. If I show you what I mean by that, let's just say, for example, I wanted to add a new layer next. You'll notice that when I do that, these two will disappear. Watch, like that. And those two have disappeared. So again, I'm just going to delete this layer. So this history palette is really useful in case you make any mistakes, and you can just work your way through the mistakes that you've done, or the work that you've done, and go back to any of those stages. Now what I'm ready to do is I'm ready to start applying some effects. Now if you think back to the images that we were looking at earlier on in the first session, where we looked at what makes a usual UFO sighting, we talked about something called noise, which means that the picture isn't actually very clear. I mean, if we zoom into 100% of this picture, you can actually see that this picture is very clear. Yep, there's no distortions, there's no little bits of pixels. It's a very clear picture. Now, I don't actually want it to be a clear picture, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the background here, and I'm going to go up to the filter button at the top, and there's lots and lots of things we can do with this image. We can add some crazy stuff on here. For example, we can add a water swirl if we wanted to, or we could make our image distort like that. If I just show you what this does, so if I press OK, and if I zoom out, you can see it's gone crazy with our image. Now again, I don't want to do that, so I'm going to use the history palette, click on this, and it goes back to normal. Make sure that you've got the correct layer selected. What I'm actually going to do with the filters is I'm going to add something called noise. Now noise, basically, if you have a look, if I have no noise on my picture, it looks nice and clear. If I have lots of noise on my picture, it looks very unclear. And what it's about is trying to find that balance between, well, I don't want my image to look perfect, because none of the UFO sighting images are perfect. So I might rough it up a little bit by adding some noise. Okay, so I might add that much noise. Now you notice that I've added the noise to the picture, to the layer of the background layer, not the spaceship layer. So what I could do is, if I wanted to add noise to that layer as well, you can see that I've set the background layer to have a noise of 68. Press OK. I'm then going to click on the spaceship layer and do the same filter, noise, and I'm just going to set this to 68 as well. If you find it hard to use this scroller, you can just type in the number here and press OK. And now you can see my picture starting to look distorted, which is the kind of effect that I want. The effect that I want to add onto it next is actually not in the filters, it's actually in the adjust. So the filters are special effects that you can put onto a picture. Adjust is whereby you might change part of the picture in another way. So for example, what I might want to do with this is, I might want to change the background layer to look like an old photo. So if I do that, you can see there, look, that what's happening now is it's looking like an old photo. So it's taken out quite a bit of the colour. And I actually like that, because what I'm going to do then is go to the spaceship and adjust that and make that look like an old photo. And now you can see, if I just flick between them, look, yeah, that's what it looked like. When I applied the old photo effect to the spaceship, it now looks like this. And I'm starting to get to where I want to be with this picture, because it's starting to look like an old picture. You're not quite sure whether this is real or not, but I can add other things to it as well, and it's about playing around with these different filters and adjustments to get the effect that you want. For example, I might want to add a filter. I mean, I don't really know what most of these do, so we could just go to them and see what they do. So I don't know what this effect does. Oh, you can see that I can't really notice what the effect does because I've selected the spaceship. So if I just cancel it, click on the background, I'll try it again. Filter. Let's see what this does. You can see that this sort of puts a glow around or a shadow around the edges in the circular motion. So that's something that you might want to do. And I'm not saying it is something that you want to do, but it's something that you might want to do. I'm not happy with that myself. Again, there's things in the adjustments that you can do. Let's just see what invert does. Well, I don't want that because that looks too fake, because a camera wouldn't have taken a picture like that. So again, I can either go to edit, undo, or I can use my history palette down here. So again, it's about playing around with some of these filters and adjustments. And if you make a mistake, don't worry, because you've always got the history palette to go back. I'm just going to have a look a bit more. I saw this adjustment, brightness and contrast, because I think the picture at the minute is a little bit too bright. So if I maybe, see, that makes it go brighter. If I just take this down a little bit, you can see that the image is looking a bit darker now. And remember, I'm only working on the background layer. I can play around with this contrast. Okay, like that. I like that. And then what I might do is go to the spaceship and do the same thing. So adjust brightness and contrast. Make the spaceship look a bit darker. Change the contrast a bit like that. And now it's starting to look like a hoax UFO picture. Okay, so again, I don't expect yours to look exactly like mine. You'll probably find some features that are maybe even better than mine, but don't be putting any inappropriate filters on. For example, this night vision one. So if I just put it on the background, the night vision one, yes, it's pretty cool, it's a good effect, you know, it looks like night vision goggles, but it's not really appropriate for this image, unless it possibly could work well. You could say that the picture is taken with a night vision camera, but you want to try and make this image and manipulate this image to make it look as realistic as possible. Okay, so open up your images, start playing around with the filters and adjustments. Make sure that you're applying those filters and adjustments to the correct layers, and then once you're happy with it, remember that what I'm going to do is File, Save. I might call this version 2, so here with the name I might want to just put a number 2 after it. So UFO Hoax 2, and make sure I save it as a PXD, because if I don't save it as a PXD, I won't be able to use these layers next time, and it'll just flatten it all out like it would in Paint. So I'm saving it to my computer as UFO Hoax 2 as a PXD file. Press OK. Now remember, you should be saving yours in your My Documents, but I'm going to save mine on the desktop. Press Save, and that has now saved the file to my desktop. Okay, so that's what we're looking for. Have a play around with everything on the software and try and create a realistic hoax UFO sighting.